So what was your next question?
Well, I was going to say you're a knowledgeable renegade archaeologist, but you're also a TV star now. So what's the craziest fan craziness you've encountered, and how have you transitioned from being a renegade archaeologist to a TV star?
Well, the question was, how was the transition, or how is it, or what was the craziest story? Because not only are you a renegade archaeologist, but you're a TV star. And to be honest with you, just me hearing that, speak this, what you just said, sounds totally ridiculous to me. Because I'm just some dude that happened to be at the right place, at the right time, whatever, because everybody thinks that, well, not everybody, I'm of course always generalizing, that I started researching this 2 years ago with the beginning of Ancient Aliens, where the reality is that, you know, I've been exposed to this ever since I was 6, 7, 8, 10 years old, and then I started to publish a magazine about this in 1998. So we're talking 14 years that I've, you know, done this, quote-unquote, professionally. And so the whole TV thing, it's wonderful, it's great because you're reaching people with it, but at the same time, it's all very comical to me. And it's great. But to me, it's something where I'm finally reaching people that I've always wanted to reach. Because I always knew, see, because this whole thing to me is Indiana Jones meets Star Wars. That's what this is all about. And that is why, you know, the fact that I get to go to comic book conventions and talk to this, where the average age of the crowd is even younger than it is right here, I mean, that is incredible. And, you know, I'm very happy about that. Next. You.
You just said that you were exposed to this when you were 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
Who exposed you? How did you discover this? Who was your idol? How did you discover Eric von Daniken?
Okay. The question was, how was I inspired when I was 6, 7 years old? How did this all start for me? And I just have to blame my grandmother for this, because I had the, you know, great privilege of traveling all around the world. I mean, my dad is from Greece. My mother is from Austria. I grew up in Switzerland, but my grandpa and my great-grandpa, they're from across the bridge in Astoria, Queens. Okay? So, you know, my parents were avid travelers, and they would always make sure that we would go to the ancient sites and the museums and things like that. And they knew that as an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or even as a 12-year-old, you know, trotting around with a guide in a museum would be very boring for a kid. And so they would say, all right, meet us back here in 4 hours. And so I would, you know, for 4 hours, and those were different times in the 80s, I guess, I would trot around the Giza Plateau, you know, by myself, and, you know, snakes going by and things like that. But then, upon returning home, my grandmother would always say, all right, so you've just been to these different cultures, and this is what the mainstream, that's what the mainstream beliefs are about these places, but let me also introduce you to something else. So she's the one who introduced me to Chariots of the Gods, to Atlantis, but also to the paranormal world, ghosts and things like that. Because my grandmother, she was, you know, devout Catholic, but she knew that there was something else there. And, yeah, so she was almost like she was very, you know, she wasn't a hippie, but she was definitely progressive. And so it was basically dinner table conversation. And then when the bug really, you know, bit me when I was 14, 15, 16, when I realized that Eric von Daniken lived and lectured in Switzerland, where I was living, I was like, all right, I'm going to go to his lectures. And I started to hang out with his friends became my friends, and I became friends with him. And in the mid or late 90s, I was asked to take over the English-speaking part of the Ancient Alien Society. And what was I supposed to say? No? Of course I did. I am a promoter, I like to do stuff. And so, for me, it was just an incredible opportunity to do this because, it is my passion. Because as some of you might know, from 2000 until 2005, I made my living as a professional bodybuilding promoter. I used to organize professional bodybuilding contests, the guys with the oiled up bodies and the thongs, doing this kind of stuff. But that was a way of me to make money in order to then fund or finance Legendary Times, which was that Ancient Alien magazine that I started in 1998. And in 2005, 2006, when the time finally came, you have to decide between what you really want to do in life or, if you want to stay with whatever it is you're doing. And I decided to follow my heart. And I urge every single one of you, despite circumstance in your life, to never ever lose sight of your heart and your dreams. Because my path where it was like, what the hell are you doing? You used to be able to buy food while you were a bodybuilding promoter, and now, you've been eating ramen noodles for 2 years. Things don't come easy in life, but if you believe in something, just go for it. There is no excuse, even circumstance. Yes?
I guess I have two questions for you. First is, how did you get started in the series, the Ancient Alien series? I remember hearing an interview with Bill Burns from the UFO Hunter show, and he said that kind of transformed into the Ancient Alien series. And I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit. And then
That's his side of the story. No, Bill is a great, great friend of mine. We're very close. I love him dearly. It is true that it is, the quote-unquote other alien show on the History Channel, but the origin actually is in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Because that movie came out in 2008, and as we all know, the idea behind it was absolutely brilliant because, hey, it's an ancient alien movie. But the implementation and the execution of that movie was absolutely horrid. I mean, awful. So, long story short, Lucasfilm commissioned this production company in LA to create a 2-hour special on the Indiana Jones movies, where they basically looked at the background of the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail, and the Sankara stones. The state of archaeology as it relates to Indiana Jones as a whole. And in the last segment of that documentary, in the last act, there's an 8-minute segment that talked about the crystal skulls, and they asked me to talk about the potential connection between the crystal skulls and extraterrestrials. All right, fine, of course I did it, even though personally, I am a skeptic regarding the crystal skulls, especially the idea that they might have been used as computers and things like that, where, the way I appear on the thing, it was sort of misedited, which always happens on TV. But that's all right, because 6 weeks after the special aired, the same production company was on the phone and they asked, hey, have you heard of Chariots of the Gods? I said, of course. They're like, well, we don't know if that guy is still alive, yada, yada, yada. But it's been 40 years since Chariots came out, so could we maybe do a special Chariots of the Gods 40 years later? And I said, sure. And not only is the guy still alive, but we publish a magazine together, Eric von Daniken and I. And so we poured our guts, blood and guts, into this project. And the first frame of the first Ancient Aliens special, which now today is called God's Chariots and Beyond. The first frame was shot on Christmas Day, 2008. It aired on March 8th, 2009. So we shot that thing in under 2 months. And long story short, here we are in season 4. So I mean, absolutely incredible. And none of us thought that this could even be possible. And you have to understand that the only reason why we are where we are today is because of you guys. So thank you very much. So give yourselves a round of applause.